Welcome in again to another main explained video. Today we have for you the Explorer Pirate classes in all their glory. Each one of these is level 140 and doesn't have any link skills on. Though you'll notice towards the end of the video for the Buccaneer that the damage increases a good 40% when I realized I didn't have my best equipment on. For the Legion board, we have max boss damage and critical damage since I forgot to change it back to the bonus experience preset before the video. Just a reminder to take these videos with a grain of salt and to verify that the playstyle is right for you by making one of these characters and giving it a try. If you like the content, make sure to like and sub and keep leaving those comments on each video. Let's do it. Each one of the Pirate Explorer classes takes one piece of original pirate weaponry and makes it their own. The Cannoneer uses the 20-pound cannons that were used on the broadsides of ships and condensed that into chibi maple form. This class attacks slowly, and because of that, a green potion from the monster park is pretty much required when training the class. However, it makes up for that with its skills having bonus critical rate and ignore defense such as cannon barrage. And we don't want a blanket statement that this class is slow because its up jump allows you to blast off straight up 3 times at once, and then it also has a horizontal movement skill as well that allows you to pick up some really good speed. The Cannoneer does more burst damage rather than overtime damage, and it has a pretty nice ranged main mobbing skill. Finally, there's no bind skill, but it does have an iframe skill, so ICBM, or the cannon of mass destruction that shoots giant bullet bills from Mario type of cannonballs. It has a 3-second invincibility frame when you release the skill, and a fraction of a second iframe when you first press the skill and you hoist the cannon on your shoulder. Now, I read that this was being nerfed to 1.8 seconds soon, but it should still be very helpful on such a short cooldown. Now, after doing a little bit of research, I was not able to find any documentation onto whether or not it was nerfed already to 1.8 seconds, but I would go ahead and assume that it was. As far as the skills that were removed, we only have one, and that is the Monkey Wave, which attacked all enemies within its path and had a chance to stun them. If hit an enemy with critical, there was a chance that an enemy would receive max damage, and it also permanently increased critical rate. Again, I wasn't able to find any documentation onto whether the base critical rate was increased for the Cannoneer to make up for this, but like I was mentioned in the overview, there are some skills that have extra critical damage and extra critical rate baked into the class skill. And as far as skills added, there were 2. One is summoning the Cannoneer's faithful partner, Monkey, which is an on-off skill. Literally, it just calls a monkey to your side, which is awesome. And then the second skill is Monkey Mortar, which fires Monkey into the air on a mortar shell, which then detonates. And it's exactly as it sounds. It literally fires the mortar straight up into the air about halfway up the screen and then explodes. As far as training goes, this class is pretty straightforward. You'll use your dice buff, then drop your anchor in the room to kill stuff in the more hard to reach corners. Overall, this class is low-key a lot of fun. Once you can one-hit mobs in your training area of choice, it really shines because of the length of the main mobbing skill. It has a 1v1 skill as well, with some iframes baked in on the 5th job skill. And while it looks like it might be slow because the attack speed of the weapon is slow, the class itself isn't actually slow in practicality. Overall, this is a solid 8 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed this class. Since every room seemingly has a Buccaneer in it, I had to check this class out to see what was up. And what I found is that the character was basically stripped down to his studs, as it had almost every attack skill removed and redone, along with some of its buffs as well. We'll kind of get into that later. This character uses the aesthetic of a sea monster to power the animations, and it looks really good. Visually speaking, the Buccaneer looks awesome. This class used to have an energy charge system that you would need to charge up to boost the damage of skills. However, since they remastered the classes, Nexon has opted to give the Buccaneer more of an auto-use attack from a serpent that attacks over time as you charge up serpent scales by using the attack skills. So for the skills, instead of listing them all off here, I'm going to summarize by saying that every active attack skill along with the energy charge skills first through 4th job were removed or changed in some way. That is a total of 11 skills, so going over all of them, frankly, would probably just take too much time for this video, so we're going to focus on the skills that actually replace them. So for the new skills for the Buccaneer, They've got all new attack skills and a couple of extra buffs, and on top of the Sea Serpent skills. We'll go over the attack skills and the buffs first, and then I'll do the Sea Serpent skills here in a second. So first off, the class has a new up jump that is called Vortex Jump. On top of that, it has Static Thumper, which attacks multiple enemies with a shockwave and landing from a jump. Then in third job, you get Corkscrew Blow, which actually just dashes across and mobs enemies together. And then Turning Kick, which actually spins in a circle and hits enemies around you kind of in a rectangular pattern. And then Octo Punch, which is just a punching skill, enemies in front, it hits 10 times. And Hook Bomber, which hits 4 times but hits 10 enemies. On top of that, you get Defensive Stance, which has a 25% trigger chance to take 40% less damage. It also activates for attacks that take off a certain percentage of your max HP, so that's super nice. And then there's the opposite version, which is Aggressive Stance. So when one of your attack skills hits an enemy, it grants a buff that increases your damage by 25% for 10 seconds. And then striking a foe while the buff is active will refresh its duration. And as I'm reading through this and have been playing through this, I'm actually starting to see why there's a lot of Buccaneers in every room. So the Sea Serpent skills, there's a ton of them. So we'll go over them really quick here. So first off, you can now summon a Sea Serpent. You can turn it on or off. You have Sea Serpent Burst skill, which passively attacks enemies in front with a Sea Serpent Shockwave, just as you're using your active attack skills. Greater Sea Serpent 1, which enhances the power of Sea Serpent to create a more powerful shockwave. Then you have the Serpent Scale, which obtain clues about the Sea Serpent's power by using it, and consume them to use the Sea Serpent's power, which doesn't make any sense on its own. But what it is it's as those Sea Serpent skills are being used passively, it builds up charges of the Serpent Scale. Once you hit 5, it uses all 5 of those to go into Assault mode, where you then can use Assault skills. So the first Assault skill you get is Serpent Assault. This attacks in a wide area with a twin Serpent Shockwave. You'll probably see that in the background. Then in fourth job, you get Greater Sea Serpent 2, which is a deeper connection to the Sea Serpent's power. It enhances the Sea Serpent's Shockwave. And then Sea Serpent Burst 2, which does the exact same thing, which allows you to strike enemies with even more powerful shockwave. Then you get Sea Serpent's Rage, which the Sea Serpent appears in response to the fighter's energy. Again, more Sea Serpent skills that are just happening as you're attacking. And then you have Raging Serpent Assault. That calls forth an enraged Sea Serpent by using Octopunch while in Assault mode. So as you're attacking with any of your active attack skills, it's passively using Sea Serpent skills. Each time the Sea Serpent skill is used, it gets 1 Sea Serpent charge. Once you hit 5 Sea Serpent charges, then it goes into Assault mode, where you can then proc 2 different versions of Assault skills. And that's either with Octopunch or Hook Bomber. Finally, we have our Hyper skills. And we have 4 new Hyper skills. The first is Serpent Spirit. So the Sea Serpent's soul descends and responds to scars left by its fangs, which that confusing description means that when you attack an enemy, it adds Sea Serpent marks. Each mark adds 5% critical damage, and the max is 3 that can be added, which means up to 15% critical damage. And then we have 3 separate new Hyper skills for Hook Bomber. This is Reinforce, which increases the damage of Hook Bomber. Spread, which increases the max number of enemies hit by Hook Bomber. And Extra Strike, which increases the number of attacks for Hook Bomber. And then I want to make special mention for the 5th job skills, because those are updated as well to include the new animation and skill descriptions for this really nice aesthetic. And one of the skills, Howling Fist, actually just straight up makes you invincible. Pretty nice. The training for this class is also pretty straightforward. You'll just traverse each map that you're on and kill stuff as you go. You don't really have a summon or a minion, but that's because the Sea Serpent is built into the class. It's kind of like a summon and a minion in one, but you don't have to worry about it proccing on its own or rebuffing or anything. It just happens. You can also turn it off if you don't want to have it on, but as I played, I found it more helpful to have it on auto mode. But again, that's just my opinion. You can have it however you like. And then my personal opinion on this class is that I think the changes to this class were super positive. The energy charge system was a bit cumbersome, in my opinion, although, again, just my opinion. I know that there are others that totally loved it, and that's totally fine. But I like the new Sea Serpent skill. I feel like it gives the class a lot of flow. I feel like it gives it a lot of damage as well. And training, once I got to the point where I could one-hit the mobs in the room, training was awesome, because I could just bounce back and forth and one-hit things on different platforms because of how the skills were shaped. And I also could see how bossing with this class could be a blast with the Sea Serpents and some of the iframes that you get in 5th job, and the burst damage skills along with the aggressive stance 25% damage bonus that it gets. Overall, this was also an 8 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed the class, and this one might be for you as well. Finally, we have our Corsair. So the Corsair uses classic pirate guns for its aesthetic, so you're going to see a lot of blunderbuss and rapid fire pistol attacks with this class. The Corsair has a burst mobbing skill, but for bossing, you'll likely be using the rapid fire skill to do damage over time. So a high critical rate is very important for this class. One thing I do want to mention that I noticed is that the Corsair seems to have a slightly higher critical rate, at least in the stats view. It was at 73%, whereas the Cannoneer was at 54% with no buffs, link skills, or legion skills. Finally, I wasn't able to locate any sort of iframe skills for this class, so if there is one in the 5th job or that I didn't mention here, please let me know in the comments. So for the skills, we have one that was removed, and it's Pirate's Revenge. So this skill, when attacked, you had a chance to increase your attack damage. So the higher the skill level, the longer the buff. Pirate's Revenge could only trigger once every 50 seconds. For the new skills, there were 3 of them, and the first one is Firing Orders. So this projects the captain's spirit, marking location for a broadside bombardment. So broadside used to only summon a ship that attacked, but now with this Firing Order skill, it allows you to attack a specific spot on the map with broadside in addition to using it as a summon. The second skill is Paratargeting, which hits the enemy with a special shot that leaves a mark for targeting. From then on, all attacks are focused on that enemy. This means that when you shoot an enemy, likely a boss, with the skill, it gives a 25% final damage bonus against that enemy. It also gives you a 20% critical damage passive buff as well. Then finally is Aggressive Stance, so take the offensive to obtain a damage increase buff when some of your attack skills hit. Yes, this is similar to the one that the Buccaneer has, but it doesn't have the same buff numbers, so it gives 15% damage, and its passive effect is that you take 15% less damage. And you also can refresh it as you continually attack people. So again, it's nice to just have another 15% damage as you're playing the game, whether against a boss, mobbing, etc. This class is going to be a bit different when it comes to training, since it's got minions and 3 separate summons you can use. You'll take your summons and put them in the hard to reach corners or wherever you want, but that's where I would put them. And then you summon your minions and then use 8 Legs Easton to kill the mobs. And then finally, my opinion on the funness of the class was that it was fun to play. It has a really nice mix of skills. Overall, all the pirates have a nice aesthetic, and this one's good too. The burst mobbing skill gives it a really nice training boost that's very needed. And this one, I don't mean to sound like a cop-out, but this one also is an 8 out of 10. Really, I don't think you can't go wrong playing any of the 3 Explorer pirates. I actually like all 3 of them for various reasons. The Corsair seems to be more damage per minute versus damage per second. The Buccaneer is more for bossing, and the Cannoneer kind of a combination of the 2. If you like the aesthetic of these classes and find the playstyle fun, then there is no reason you can't main one of these classes. If I had to pick one for myself, I would go with the Buccaneer because of the combination of bossing skills, the iframes, the amount of lines it can produce, and the shape of its main attacks. I won't be switching today, but let me know if you do. See you in the next video.